the morning were the third day. Then God said, "Let there be light in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be of signs and seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights and in the firmament of the heavens, to give light on the earth." And so it was. When God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day and the lesser light to rule the night, he made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good. So the evening and the morning were the fourth day. Then God said, "Let the waters abound with an abundance of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the face of the firmament of the heavens." So God created great sea creatures and every living thing that moves, with which the water abounds, according to their kind, and each winged bird according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, "Be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the sea. Let the birds multiply on the earth." So the evening and the morning were the fifth day. Then God said, "Let the earth bring forth the living creatures according to its kind, cattle and creeping things, and beasts of the earth, each according to its kind." And it was so. And God made the beasts of the earth according to its kind, cattle according to its kind, and everything that creeps on the earth according to its kind. And God saw that it was good. Then God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him, male and female. He created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it. Have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth." And God said, "See, I have given you every herb that yields seed, which is on the face of all the earth, and every tree whose fruit yields seeds. To you it shall be for food. Also to every beast of the earth, to every bird of the air, and to everything that creeps on the earth, in which there is life, I have given every green herb for food." And it was so. Then God saw everything that he made, and indeed it was very good. So the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. And on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done, and rested on the seventh day, all his work which he had done. Then God blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because in it he rested from all his work which God had created and made. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Also from Jesus, son of Sirach, the prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen.
Also from Jesus, son of Sirach, the prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. All wisdom comes from the Lord and is with him forever. The sand of the sea, the drops of rain, and the days of eternity, who can count them? The height of heaven, the breadth of the earth, the abyss and the wisdom, who can search them out? Wisdom was created before all things, and prudent understanding from eternity. The root of wisdom, to whom has it been revealed? Her clever devices, who knows them? There is one who is wise, greatly to be feared, sitting upon his throne. The Lord himself created wisdom. He saw her and apportioned her. He poured her out upon all his works. She dwells with all the flesh according to his gift, and he supplied her to those who love him. The fear of the Lord is glory and exaltation, and the gladness and a crown of rejoicing. The fear of the Lord delights the heart and gives gladness and joy and long life. With him who fears the Lord, it will go well at the end. On the day of the death, he will be blessed. To fear the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. She is created with the faithful in the womb. She made among men an eternal foundation, and among their descendants she will be trusted. To fear the Lord is wisdom's full measure. She satisfies men with her fruits. She filled their whole house with the desirable goods, and their storehouses with her produce. The fear of the Lord is the crown of wisdom, making peace and perfect health to flourish. He saw her and apportioned her. He rained down knowledge and discerning comprehension, and he exalted the flower of those who held her fast. Lord, be the Holy Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
The homily of our Father Abba Shenouda the Archimandrite, may his blessings be with us all, amen. Brothers, if we need to escape from God's punishment and find mercy before him, we must sit alone at the end of the day and search through ourselves and ask, what have we offered our serving angel to convey to the Lord? When the night is over and the day breaks, we have to search our souls and find out what we have offered to our guardian angel to deliver to God. We should not doubt for a single moment that every person, man or woman, young or old, who was baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, has an angel responsible for him till their death, and to convey and raise their deeds, whether by night or by day, to God. Not because God does not know what we are doing, but on the contrary, God knows every detail of it. As it is written, God's eyes are watching continuously, and everywhere the evildoers and righteous. The angels are servants appointed by God for those who are going to inherit salvation. Let us conclude the homily of our Father Abba Shenouda the Archimandrite, who has enlightened our minds and the eyes of our hearts, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. Here is when we pray, thankful our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. Thokte gom nembe bismonem bi amai. Manuel ben noti ben oro, thokte gom nembe bismonem bi amai. Shaine min beshoisi sos be Christos. Thokte gom nembe bismonem bi amai. Shaine min ben.
Tetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem impershoisi sos per Christos nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in
Thoktetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in Manuel penoti pen oro Thoktetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in bashois Isos Thoktetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in
Tetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in Emmanuel penoti pen oro Tetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in pashois Isos per Christos Tetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in
Thoktetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in Emmanuel penoti pen oro Thoktetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in bashois Isos Thoktetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in
Tetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in Emmanuel penoti pen oro Tetigom nempio nempismon nempiamai shainem in persois Iisus pe Hristos. Tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin.
Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine min Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine min bashois Iisus Christos. Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine min.
Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin. Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin. Persois Iisus pe Hristos. Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin.
Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mai shaine min Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mai shaine min bashois Iisus pe Christos. Thok tetigom o nembismon nembia mai shaine min.
Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin. Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin. Persois Iisus pe Hristos. Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin.
Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine min Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine min bashois Iisus pe Christos. Tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine min.
Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin. Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thok tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin. Persois Iisus pe Hristos. Tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shaine amin.
Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine amin. Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine amin. Bashois Iisus pe Christos. Thok tetigom nembio nembismon nembia mahi shaine amin.
To you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen. Emmanuel, our God and our
Psalmos toda avi efes marot in ois evnoti Israel. Fiet in an Avad. Efes en piraan eth oa bente o shaene
Καταξίω θένημε της άκρος Άγιο Ευαγγελίο, Κύριον και τον Θεόν ημών, εκετεύσομεν σοφιόρθι, ακούσομεν το Άγιο
From From the sons of our teacher David the prophet and king, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. Blessed be the Lord God, the God of Israel, who only does wondrous things, and blessed be his glorious name forever. and let the whole earth be filled with his glory. Amen and amen. Alleluia. O Lord, have pity and mercy on us, and make us worthy to listen to your holy gospel. A chapter from the Holy Gospel according to St. Mark, the evangelist and pure disciple. May his blessings be with us all. Amen. Now the next day, when they had come out from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing from afar a fig tree having leaves, he went to see if perhaps he would find something on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. In response, Jesus said to it, "Let no one eat fruit from you ever again." And his disciples heard it, so they came to Jerusalem. Then Jesus went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves, and who would not allow anyone to carry wares through the temple. Then he taught, saying to them, "Is it not written, 'My house shall be called a house of prayer for all nations,' but you have made it a den of thieves." And the scribes and the chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because all the people were astonished at his teaching. When evening had come, he went out of the city. Now in the morning, as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. And Peter, remembering, said to him, "Rabbi, look, the fig tree which you cursed has withered away." So Jesus answered and said to them, "Have faith in God. For assuredly I say to you, whoever says to this mountain, 'Be removed and be cast into the sea,' and does not doubt in his heart, but believes that those things he says will be done, he will have whatever he says. Therefore I say to you, whatever things you ask when you pray, believe that you receive them, and you will have them." Glory.
Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. Forgive those who trespass. Lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ, our Lord, thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
From Isaiah the prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Woe to men mighty at drinking wine. Woe to men valiant for mixing intoxicating drink, who justify the wicked for a bribe and take away justice from the righteous man. Therefore, as the fire devours and stumbles, and the flame consumes the chaff, so their root will be rottenness, and their blossom will ascend like dust, because they have rejected the law of the Lord of hosts, and despite the word of the Holy One of Israel. Therefore, any anger of the Lord is aroused against his people, and he has stretched out his hand against them and stricken them, and the hills tremble. The carcasses were as refused in the midst of the streets. For all this, his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. He will lift up a banner to the nation from afar, and while whistle to them from the end of the earth. Surely they shall come with speed, swiftly. No one will be weary or stumble among them. No one will slumber or sleep, nor will the belt of their loins be loosened, nor the straps of their sandals be broken, whose arrows are sharp, and all their bows bent. Their horses' hooves will seem like flint, and their wheels like a whirlwind. Their roaring will be like a lion. They will roar like young lions. Yes, they will roar and lay hold of their prey. They will carry it away safely, and no one will deliver. In that day, they will roar against like the roaring of the sea. And if one looks to the land, behold, darkness and sorrow, and the light is darkened by the clouds. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Also from Jeremiah the prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen.
Who is the wise man who may understand this? And who is he to whom the mouth of the Lord has spoken, that he may declare it? Why does the land perish and burn up like a wilderness, so that no one can pass through? And the Lord said, because they have forsaken my law which I set before them, and have not obeyed my voice, nor walked according to it, but they have walked according to the dictates of their own hearts, and after the Baals which their fathers taught them. Therefore thus says the Lord of the hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will feed them, this people with wormwood, and give them water of gall to drink. I will scatter them also among the Gentiles, whom neither they nor have fathers that have known. And I will send a sword after them, and I have consumed them, until I have consumed them. Thus says the Lord of hosts, consider and call for the mourning woman, that they may come, and send for skillful wailing women, that they may come. Let them make haste and take up a wailing for us, that our eyes may run with tears, and our eyelids gush with water. For a voice of wailing is heard from Zion. How we are plundered, we are greatly ashamed, because we have forsaken the land, because we have been cast out of our dwellings. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, the Father, and the Holy Spirit.
Our Father, who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever and ever. Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min bashoi sisos. Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min.
Thok teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min pershoi sisos per Christos. Teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min.
Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min Sisos be Christos. Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min.
Thok teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min pershoi sisos per Christos. Teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min.
Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min Sisos be Christos. Thok teti gom nembio nembismo nembia mahi shaine min.
Thok teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempio nempesmo nempia mai shaine min pershoi sisos per Christos. Gom nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin.
Thok teti gom nembio nembizmon empia mahi shine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Teti gom nembio nembizmon empia mahi shine min bashoi sisos be Christos. Thok teti gom nembio nembizmon empia mahi shine min.
Lok teti go nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin. Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Lok teti go nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin. Pashoi sisos be Christos. Teti go nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin.
Thok teti gom nembio nembizmon empia mahi shine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nembio mon empia mahi shine min bashoi sisos be Christos. Thok teti gom nembio nembizmon empia mahi shine min.
Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin. Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin. Pashoi sisos be Christos. Teti gom nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin.
To you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen. Emmanuel, our God and our King. To you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen. My Lord Jesus Christ, to you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen.
Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin. Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin. Pashoi sisos Restos. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mon nempi amai shine amin.
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
A psalm of David. I want And they said to me, house of the Lord. Jerusalem.
Και περτο καταξιότην ημές της ακροάσεως του Αγίου Ευαγγελίου, Κύριον και των Θεών ημών, οικετεύσομεν σοφέε ορθέ ακούσομεν το Άγιο Ευαγγέλιο.
Ιησούε κατά Μαρκον Αγίων.
From the sons of our teacher David, the prophet and king, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. I was glad when they said to me, "Let us go into the house of the Lord. Our feet have been standing within your gates, O Jerusalem."
Alleluia.
O Lord, have pity and mercy on us, and make us worthy to listen to your holy gospel. A chapter from the holy gospel, according to Saint Mark the Evangelist, apostle and pure disciple. May his blessings be with us all. Amen. And Jesus went into Jerusalem and into the temple. So when he had looked around at all things, as the hour was already late, he went out to Bethany with the 12. Now the next day, when they had come out from Bethany, he was hungry, and seeing from afar a fig tree having leaves, he went to see if perhaps he would find something on it. When he came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for it was not the season for figs. In response, Jesus said to it, Let no one eat fruits from you ever again." And his disciples heard it. So they came to Jerusalem. Then Jesus went into the temple and began to drive out those who bought and sold in the temple, and overturned the table of the money changers and the seats of those who sold doves. And he would not allow anyone to carry wares through the temple. Then he taught, saying to them, "Is it not written, my house shall be called the house of prayer for all nations, but you have made it a den of thieves?" And the scribes and chief priests heard it and sought on how they might destroy him, for they feared him, because of all the people were astonished at his teaching. When the evening had come, he went out to the city.
Glory to you, our Lord.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. From the prophecies of Monday of the Holy Pascha, may its blessing be with us all. Amen.
And the Lord said to Moses, "Go get down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I have commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf and worshipped it, and sacrificed to it, and said, 'This is your God, O Israel, that brought you out of the land of Egypt.' And the Lord said to Moses, 'I have seen this people, and indeed it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may burn hot against them, and I may consume them. And I will make of you a great nation.' Then Moses pleaded with the Lord his God and said, 'Lord, why does your wrath burn hot against your people whom you have brought out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians speak and say, He brought them out to harm them, to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from your fierce wrath and relent from this harm to your people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, your servants to whom you swore by your own self, and said to them, I will multiply your descendants as the stars of heaven, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your descendants, and they shall inherit it forever. So the Lord relented from the harm which he said he would do to his people. And Moses turned and went down from his mountain, and the 2 tablets of the testimony were in his hand. The tablets were written on both sides, on the one side and on the other side they were written. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Also from the Book of Wisdom of Solomon the Prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen.
Love righteousness, you rulers of the earth. Think of the Lord with uprightness, and seek him with sincerity of heart, because he is found by those who do not put him to the test, and manifest himself to those who do not distrust him. For perverse thoughts separate men from God, and when his power is tested, it convicts the dullish. Because wisdom will not enter a deceitful soul, nor dwell in a body enslaved to sin. For a holy and disciplined spirit will flee from deceit, and will rise and depart from foolish thoughts, and will be ashamed at the approach of unrighteousness. For wisdom is a kindly spirit, and will not free a blasphemer from the guilt of his words, because God is witness to his innermost feelings, and a true observer of his heart, and the hearer of his tongue, because the Spirit of the Lord has filled the world, and that which holds all things together knows what is said. Therefore, no one who utters unrighteous things will escape notice, and justice, when it punishes, will not pass by him. For inquiry will be made into the counsels of an ungodly man, and the report of his words will come to the Lord to convict him of his lawless deeds. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Chosen and the prayer of the 6 hours of the Monday of the Holy Pascha, blessing be with us. Amen. Hear us, dear Lord, when we pray, thankful our Father who art in heaven.
Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory forever and ever. Amen.
Eleison sokteti gom nembion embismon embia Maishai neamin Emmanuel ben noti ben oro sokteti gom nembion embismon embia Shai neamin Emmanuel Jesus bechristos sokteti gom nembion embismon embia Maishai neamin
Tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min Emmanuel penoti pen oro thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min peshois Isos pe Christos tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min
Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min bashois Isos Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min
Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min Emmanuel penoti pen oro Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min peshois Isos pe Christos tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min
Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine Shois Isos pe Christos Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min
Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min Emmanuel penoti pen oro Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min peshois Isos pe Christos tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min
Thog tetigom nempion empismon empiamai shine min Emmanuel pen noti pen oro Teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin bashois Isos Christos. Teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin.
Thuk teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thuk teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin bashois Isos Christos. Teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin.
Ok teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin bashois Isos. Thok teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin.
Thuk teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thuk teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin bashois Isos Christos. Thuk teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin.
Thok teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin Emmanuel ben noti ben oro. Thok teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin bashois Isos Christos. Thok teti gom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai amin.
To you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen. Emmanuel, our God and our King. You is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen. My Lord Jesus Christ is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen.
Who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Salmos toda avid et
of Angele Fili. Nifili ois Ethri Aele Eloya. Esrai il Evo all choice.
Peto kataxeio tinimes, tin sacro atagio evangelio, Kyrion que tonteonimon, in ketef somento feiorti, a consumento agio
Where the tribes go out, the tribes of the Lord, to the testimony of Israel, to give thanks to the name of the Lord. O Lord, have pity and mercy on us, and make us worthy to listen to your holy gospel. A chapter from the holy gospel according to St. John, the evangelist and pure disciple. May his blessings be with us all. Amen. Now the Passover of the Jews was at hand, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem, and he found in the temple those who sold oxen and sheep and doves and money changers doing business. When he had made a whip of cords, he drove them all out of the temple with the sheep and the oxen, and poured out the changers' money, and overturned the tables. And he said to those who sold doves, "Take these things away. Do not make my Father's house a house of merchandise." Then his disciples remembered that it was written, "Zeal for your house has eaten me up."
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. From the prophecies of the 9th hour of Monday of the Holy Pascha, may blessing be with us all. Amen.
From the book of Genesis of Moses the prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. Then the Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to tend and keep it. And the Lord God commanded the man, saying, "Of every tree of the garden you may eat freely, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat. For in the day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. And the Lord God said, it is not good that man should be alone. I will make him a helper comparable to him. Out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to Adam to see what he would call them. And whatever Adam called each living creature, that was its name. So Adam gave names to all cattle, to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helper comparable to him. And the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall on Adam, and he slept. And he took one of his ribs and closed up the flesh in its place. Then the rib which the Lord God had taken from man, he made into a woman, and he brought her to the man. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And they were both naked, the man and his wife, and they were not ashamed.
Now the serpent was more cunning than any beast of the field which the Lord God had made. And he said to the woman, has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said to the serpent, we may eat the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is not the midst of the garden, God has said, you shall not eat it, nor shall you touch it, lest you die. Then the serpent said to the woman, you will not surely die. For God knows that in the day you eat of it, your eyes will be opened, and you will be like God, knowing good and evil. So when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree desirable to make one wise, she took of its fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them were opened, and they knew that they were naked. And they sewed fig leaves together, and made themselves coverings. And they heard the sound of the Lord God walking in the garden in the cool of the day. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of the Lord God among the trees of the garden. Then the Lord God called to Adam and said to him, where are you? So he said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid, because I was naked, and I hid myself. And he said, who told you that you were naked? Have you eaten from the tree of which I commanded you that you should not eat? Then the man said, the woman whom you gave to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I ate. And the Lord God said to the woman, what is this you have done? The woman said, the serpent deceived me, and I ate. So the Lord God said to the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed, more than all cattle, and more than every beast of the field. On your belly you shall go, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel. To the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In pain you shall bring forth children. Your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you. Then to Adam he said, because you have heeded the voice of your wife, and have eaten from the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In toil you shall eat of it all the days of your life. Both thorns and thistles it shall bring forth for you, and you shall eat the herb of the field. In the sweat of your face you shall eat bread till you return to the ground. For out of it you were taken, for dust you are, and to dust you shall return. And Adam called his wife's name Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Also for Adam and his wife the Lord God made tunics of skin, and clothed them. Then the Lord God said, behold, the man has come like one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put out his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat, and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him out of the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. So he drove out the man, and he placed cherubim at the east of the Garden of Eden, and a flaming sword which turned every way, to guard the way to the tree of life. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
From Isaiah the prophet, may his blessings be with us all, amen. Comfort, yes, comfort my people, says your God. Speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned, for she has received from the Lord's hand double for all her sins. The voice of one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of the Lord, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and high hill brought low. The crooked places shall be made straight, and the rough places smooth. The glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. For the mouth of the Lord has spoken. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, the Father, and Holy Spirit, one God. Also from the Proverbs of Solomon, may his blessings be with us all, amen.
The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity, to give prudence to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. To understand a proverb and an enigma, the words of the wise and their riddles. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. My son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Chosen and the prayer of the ninth hour of the Monday of the Holy Pascha, may blessing be Jesus and Amen. Hear us, dear Lord, and pray thankful, our Father who art in heaven.
Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses. Those trespass against us, and lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, thine is the kingdom, power, and
Lord, forever. Amen. Kyrie eleison, sokteti gom, nembi o, nembismon, nembi Maisha, Amin, Emmanuel, ben noti, ben oro, sokteti gom, nembi o, nembismon, nembi Maisha, Amin, bashois, Isos, bechristos, sokteti gom, nembi o, nembismon, nembi Maisha, Amin.
Shine, Amin, Emmanuel, Penoti, Pen Oro, Thok, Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin, Peshois, Iso, Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin.
Thok tetigom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Tetigom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin bashois Isos. Thok tetigom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin.
Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin, Emmanuel, Penoti, Pen Oro. Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin, Peshois, Isos, Bechristos. Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin.
Thok tetigom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin Emmanuel pen noti pen oro. Tetigom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin bashois Isos. Thok tetigom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin.
Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin, Emmanuel, Penoti, Pen Oro. Thok, Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin, Peshois, Isos, Bechristos. Tetigom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin.
Thok tetigom nempio nempismo nempia mahishai nemin il pennoti pen oro, thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amahi shaine mimba shoi sisos. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amahi shaine amin.
Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin Emmanuel pennoti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin pashoi sisos per Christos. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin.
Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amahi shaine amin Emmanuel pennoti pen oro. Teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amahi shaine amin bashoi sisos. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amahi shaine amin.
Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin Emmanuel pennoti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin pashoi sisos per Christos. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin.
To you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen. Emmanuel, our God and our King. To you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen. My Lord Jesus Christ, to you is the power and glory and blessing and honor forever. Amen.
Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin Emmanuel pennoti pen oro. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin pashoi sisos Christos. Thok teti gom nempi o nempis mo nempi amai shaine amin. Father who art in heaven,
Hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as 'tis in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. For thine is the kingdom, power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
A psalm of David. Answer, so God of our salvation, you who are all the ends of the earth. And of the far off sea, blessed is the man whom you choose and call to he may dwell in your courts.
Και περ το καταξιότην ημές της ακροασιός του Αγίου Ευαγγελίου, Κύριον και των Δεών ημών, ή κατεύσομεν σοφέιε ορθέ ακούσομεν το Άγιο
Evangelion o anagnosis evon Evangelion eso web kata Matheon agion
From the Psalms of our teacher David the prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. You will answer us, O God of our salvation, you who are the confidence of all the ends of the earth and of the far-off seas. Blessed is the man whom you choose and cause to approach you, that he may dwell in your courts. O Lord, have pity and mercy on us, and make us worthy to listen to your holy gospel, a chapter from the holy gospel, according to Saint Matthew, the evangelist, apostle, and pure disciple. May his blessings
Be with us.
Now, when he came into the temple, the chief priest and the elders of the people confronted him as he was teaching and said, "By what authority are you doing these things? And who gave you this authority?" But Jesus answered and said to them, "I also will ask you one thing, which if you tell me, I likewise will tell you by what authority I do these things. The baptism of John, where was it from? From heaven or from men?" And they reasoned among themselves, saying, "If we say from heaven, he will say to us, why then did you not believe him? But if we say from men, we fear the multitude, for all count John as a prophet." So they answered Jesus and said, "We do not know." And he said to them, "Neither will I tell you by what authority I do these things."
Glory to you,
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. From the prophecies of the 11th hours of the Monday of the Holy Pascha, may His blessing be with us. Amen.
Comfort, yes, comfort my people, says your God. Speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out for her, that her warfare is ended. Thus says the Lord, where is the certificate of your mother's divorce, whom I have put away? Or which of my creditors is it to whom I have sold you? For your iniquities you have sold yourselves, and for your transgressions your mother has been put away. Why then I came, was there no man? Why when I called, was there none to answer? Is my hand shortened at all that it cannot redeem, or have I no power to deliver? Indeed, with my rebuke I dry up the sea. I make the rivers a wilderness. The fish stink because there is no water, and die of thirst. I clothe the heavens with blackness, and I make sackcloth their coverings. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Also from Jesus, son of Sirach, the prophet, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. To fear the Lord is the root of wisdom, and her branches are long life. Unrighteous anger cannot be justified, for a man's anger tips the scales to his ruin. A patient man will endure until the right moment, and then joy will burst forth from him. He will hide his words until the right moment, and the lips of many will tell of his good sense. In the treasuries of wisdom are wise sayings, but godliness is an abomination to a sinner. If you desire wisdom, keep the commandments, and the Lord will supply it for you. For the fear of the Lord is wisdom and instruction, and he delights in fidelity and meekness. Do not disobey the fear of the Lord. Do not approach him with a divided mind. Be not a hypocrite in men's sight, and keep watch over your lips. Do not exalt yourself, lest you fall, and thus bring dishonor upon yourself. The Lord will reveal your secrets and cast you down in the midst of the congregation, because you did not come in the fear of the Lord, and your heart was full of deceit. Glory be to the Holy Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, may God be with us. Amen. A homily for our Father, Saint Abba Shenouda Darshman Drai. May his holy blessing be with us. Amen. There are works which we see as good but are unacceptable to God. Let us not overlook one another and thus sin in the holy places. For the Lord did not plant in the paradise good trees and bad trees, but he planted only the good trees. He did not plant in it fruitless trees or trees bearing bad fruit. Not only this, but even the people themselves whom he placed there, when they disobeyed, he did not bear them and cast them from it. From this, my brethren and my sisters, now that it is not appropriate for the holy dwelling places of God to be filled with people who are evil and good, as the world is full of sinners, treacherous, saints, and defiled people. But those who sin shall not be left in it, but he will take them out. I know the whole earth is the Lord's. So if his house is similar to the rest of the earth, then what will be its advantage? If I am a priest and do evil deeds like the evil people on earth, I should not be called a priest. So many times we do the wrong things, but we do not judge ourselves. Nobody dares to fill our houses with dirt unless he finds you negligent. The king's chamberlain dares not allow anybody to enter the place, whether he is complying with the king's rules or not, without the king's permission. If he does allow anything different from this, then he will be punished. Let us conclude the homily for our Father, Saint Abba Shenouda Darshman Drai, who has enlightened our minds and eyes of our hearts. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God. Amen. Choice and the prayer of the 11th hour. Blessing Jesus, and Amen. Hear us, dear Lord, when we pray thankfully. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread.
Those who trespass against us, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, power, and glory, forever and ever. Amen.
يا ليسون ثوك تاتيقوم نمبيون نمبزمون نمبي ماي شايني امين منو البنوتي بن اورو ثوك تاتيقوم نمبيون نمبزمون يا ماي شايني من بشوي سيسوس بخريستوس ثوك تاتيقوم نمبيون نمبزمون نمبي ماي شايني امين
Morning, Pia, my shine, Emin, Emmanuel, Penoti, Pen Oro, Look, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempis, Morning, Pia, my shine, Emin, Pajoi, Sos, Christos, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempis, Morning, Pia, my shine, Emin.
Look, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempis, Morning, Pia, my shine, Emin, Emmanuel, Penoti, Ben Oro. Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shaine min bashoisi sos Christos. Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shaine min.
Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shaine min. Emmanuel penoti pen oro. Look, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, in Peshoi, Sos, Christos. Look, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin.
Look, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin. Emmanuel, Benoti, Benoro. Tetigo nembio nembezmo nembia mai shine min bashoi sos Christos. Tetigo nembio nembezmo nembia mai shine min.
Tetigo nembio nembezmo nembia mai shine min. Emmanuel penoti pen oro. Look, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, in Peshoi, Sos, Christos. Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin.
Look, Tati, Gom, Nempio, Nempismo, Nempia, my shine, Amin. Emmanuel, Benoti, Benoro. Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min bashoi sos Christos. Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min.
Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min. Emmanuel penoti pen oro. Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min Peshoi sos Christos. Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine Amin.
Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min. Emmanuel benoti benoro. Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min bashoi sos Christos. Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min.
Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min. Emmanuel penoti pen oro. Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine min Peshoi sos Christos. Look, Tetigo nembio nembizmo nembia mai shine Amin.
Look, Tetigo
is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, thine is the kingdom, power, and glory forever.
Salmos Aviv enta or evermore. Paul, Enteba Gajigo vive.
Per tocataxeio tenimes, tis acro.
vol Chem bevangeliones o webkata Ioannenagion.
From the Psalms of our teacher David, the prophet and king, may his blessings be with us all. Amen. Consider and hear me, O God, Lord my God, enlighten my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death, lest my enemies say, I have prevailed against him.
Alleluia.
O Lord, have pity and mercy on us, and make us worthy to listen to your holy gospel. A chapter from the Holy Gospel according to St. John, the evangelist, apostle, and pure disciple. May his blessings
Be with us all.
Most assuredly I say to you, if anyone keeps my word, he shall never see death. Then the Jews said to him, now we know you have a demon in you. Abraham is dead, and the prophets. And you say, if anyone keeps my word, they shall never taste death. Are you greater than our father Abraham, who is dead, and the prophets are dead? Who do you make yourself out to be? Jesus answered, if I honor myself, my honor is nothing. It is my Father who honors me, of whom you say that he is your God. Yet you have not known him, but I know him. If I say I do not know him, I shall be a liar like you. But I know him and keep his words. Your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day, and he saw it and was glad. Then the Jews said to him, you're not yet 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham. Jesus said to them, most assuredly I say to you, before Abraham I am. Then they took up stones to throw at him, but Jesus hid himself and went out to the temple, going through them, and so passed by.
Glory to you, our Lord.
Genevranente etrias eviotne eme beshirin be oinenta a efemin eromineven In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. The first hour commentary of the Monday of the Holy Pascha, may its blessing be with us all, Amen.
In the beginning, God created heaven and earth, and His Spirit was there. He made a distinction between day and night. He called the light day and the darkness night. He created this with great wisdom. On the second day, God separated the sky from the waters and called it heaven. On the third day, he gathered the waters and separated it from the earth. On the fourth day, he created the sun, moon, and the stars. On the fifth day, he created birds, fish, animals, trees, and plants. On the sixth day, he created Adam, the first human being, and a female companion for him. He gave them dominion over all his work. On the seventh day, he rested, for he had completed all his work. This was according to his divine plan. Let us glorify and exalt his name according to his great mercy.
Christ our Savior came and suffered for us, that he may save us through his sufferings.
Let us glorify and exalt his name according to his great mercy.
The commentary of the third hours of the Holy Monday of the Holy Pascha, and his blessing be with us. Amen.
On Sunday evening, our Lord Jesus Christ went outside Jerusalem with his disciples, and he became hungry and saw from a distance a fig tree. So he went to it to get some fruit from, but he found leaves with no fruit. So he cursed the tree, and immediately it withered. His disciples marveled. Have faith in your hearts, and God will grant you everything you ask for. Do not be surprised that the fig tree had withered from one word, for if you have faith, you will order the mountain to move from its place. Therefore, learn a lesson from this fig tree and be fruitful, and repent to gain forgiveness. Pray hard with tears and light lanterns with virtues, so they may shine upon you on the day of judgment. Share the suffering with your brother, and think how much Jesus had suffered for you to save you.
Christ our Savior came and suffered for us, that he may save us through his sufferings.
Let us glorify and exalt his name according to his great mercy.
The commentary of the 6 hours of the Holy Monday of the Holy Pascha, may blessing be with us. Amen.
How dare you, Israelites, to change the place of forgiveness into a place of sin, and the house of prayer into a den of thieves, and a place for cattle, sheep, doves, and money changers? What is the prophet full of evil and unjust? When Jesus looked at his Father's house and found that you have made it a place of robbers and traders, he kicked out all the cattle, the merchants, and overturned the tables of the money changers. When the disciples saw this, they remembered what was written about him. Zeal for your house has eaten me up. He did that with authority. Your dominion is everlasting on heaven and on earth, and your might has moved the mountains. But Israel has ignored that. Therefore, they were deprived of your help and support.
Christ our Savior came and suffered for us, that he may save us through his sufferings.
Let us glorify and exalt his name according to his great mercy.
The commentary of the 9th hours of the Holy Pascha, may blessing be with us. Amen. You have created.
You have created me with your pure hands and made me in the best form. You have granted me the paradise, the fruit of the trees, and dominion over all the creatures. You made me self-sufficient and gave me only one companion, and I disobeyed it.
I beseech you, Lord, to forgive me according to your great mercy.
I saw you, Adam, lonely, and therefore I created companion for you from your bones. I said, it is not good for man to be alone, and I was concerned that you and I gave you all the authority over the creation. You obeyed Eve and left my commandment.
I beseech you, Lord, to forgive me according to your great mercy.
Remember, O Lord, that I am dust, and you gave me power. You have forbidden me to eat from one tree, but I disobeyed you and blamed the woman you gave me, and hid behind the tree so as not to see you. God told Adam, because you listened to your wife and ate the fruit which I told you not to eat, the earth is cursed, and it shall produce thorns and weeds for you, and you will have to work hard and sweat to make the soil productive. God told Eve, with pain and sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be for your husband, and he shall rule over you.
I beseech you, Lord, to forgive me according to your great mercy.
God said, now Adam has become like one of us, and he has knowledge of what is good and what is bad. Therefore God drove him from the garden. He put the cherubims and a flaming sword to keep anyone from coming near paradise.
I
I
beseech
beseech
you,
you, Lord, to forgive me according to your great mercy.
Where do I go from your spirit, and where do I flee from your face? If I rise up to the heavens or go down to the deep earth, you are there.
I beseech you, O Lord, to forgive me according to your great mercy.
Adam, being outside the paradise, went to till the earth and eat of its fruits. As a result of listening and obeying the devil, Adam and Eve lived in slavery. Christ our
Savior came and suffered for us, that he may save us through his sufferings.
Let us glorify and exalt his name according to his great mercy.
The commentary of the 11th hours of the Monday of the Holy Pascha, may it blessing be with us. Amen.
O Lord Jesus, O Jesus Christ, the true light who shines all over the earth and nations. But the Jews did not come to the light and did not believe in him. Moreover, they accused him that he cast out devils by the power of the devil. When Jesus had mentioned that whoever believes in him shall not die, the Jews accused him, saying, "Even Abraham and the prophets had died. How can your believers not die? You are not even 50 years old, and you have seen Abraham." So Jesus answered, "He has existed even before Abraham lived, and that even if he honors himself, the honors will be worth nothing. We, the believers, confess from all our hearts that Jesus Christ, our Lord, existed since the beginning of the Father and the Holy Spirit. But the Jews, in spite of all the miracles that he had performed in front of them, did not understand that he is a Savior. As the prophet said, he refused to accept him.
Our Savior came and suffered for us, that he may save us through his sufferings.
Let us glorify and exalt his name according to his great mercy.
Bechristos ben sotir. Hinachene evemakav marinte de aferona Let us each time we prostrate, we ask the mercy on his people and all the world. Eklenomenta onata. Anastomen eklenomenta onata. Ke anastomen eklenomenta onata. Pray that God may have mercy and compassion on us, hear us, sustain us, and continuously accept the prayers and supplication of his saints on our behalf for our good always, and forgive us our sins. Ask for the peace of the one and holy universal apostolic church, and the salvation of God in the congregation, for the safety of every place, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask for our fathers and brothers and sisters who are sick, for any type of sickness here and in all other places, so that our Lord will cure them and forgive us our sins. Ask and pray our fathers and brethren and sisters who are actually in trouble, and them anywhere who intend to travel, that God may facilitate the ways of all of them, whether by sea or river or lake or in the beaten road tracks, or those traveling by all means, that Christ our Lord may bring them back to their homes in safety. Forgive us our sins. Ask and pray for the rains and the winds of the heaven, and the fruits of the lands, and all the trees and vineyards, also that every fruitful tree be blessed and grows in safety, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Ask and pray that God may give us mercy and sympathy in the hearts of all the rulers, presidents, and kings at all times, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask and pray for our fathers and for our brethren and sisters who have slept and rested in the faith of the Christ from the beginning. Our holy fathers, the archbishops, our fathers, the bishops, the metropolitans, our fathers, the priests, our brethren, the deacons, our fathers, the monks, our fathers, the laymen, and our sisters, the nuns, are for the repose of all the Christians, that Christ our Lord may rest all their souls in the paradise of the light, and we as well may have mercy on us. Forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask and pray for them who attended to the sacrifices, the oblations, the fruits, the first fruits, the oil, the incense, the coverings of the books of the reading, and the vessels of the altar, that Christ our God may reward them in the heaven of Jerusalem, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Ask and pray for the catacombs of our church, that the Lord bless them, enlighten their hearts, and confirm them in the faith of the Holy Orthodox Church until the end of their lives, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask and pray for this holy church and all the churches and monasteries and the nunneries of the Orthodox people, the Orthodox fathers and the nuns, and for the whole world, that God grant us all security and keep us away from all evil, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Ask and pray for the life of our beloved venerated Father Archbishop Abba Tawadros II, that God keep him for many years in peaceful times, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask and pray for the metropolitans, bishops, and our Bishop Amba Daniel in every place, and the proto-priests, the priests, the deacons, and all the orders of the church, that the Lord keep them and strengthen them, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Ask and pray for this congregation, all the congregations of the Orthodox Church in all the world, that God bless them and support them, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask and pray for the clergymen and the faithful who have service in this holy church, and all the churches, that God bless them and support them, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Ask and pray for all those who share in different service and needs of the churches, and helping the Orthodox people by any means, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask and pray for all the kings, the rulers, the presidents, who told us to mention them in our prayers in the Holy Orthodox Church, that the Lord God bless them and have mercy on them, and give them mercy in the hearts of the other kings and the rulers, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Ask and pray for those who are poor, the weak, the people, and for the peasants, and those who are sick, and for all those who are in distress and of any kind, that our Lord be merciful with them and with us all, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Ask and pray for all those who are in distress, for being in captivity, or imprisoned, or in exile, or afflicted with the unclean spirits and the devils, that God have mercy with them and liberate them, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Pray and ask for all those assemble with us in this holy day and all the holy places, asking for mercy for all their souls, that the Lord of kindness may have mercy on them and on us, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Pray and ask for all those who told us to mention them in our prayers in this holy church, and all the churches, that God may remember them according to his great goodness at all times, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Pray and ask for the rising of the waters of the rivers this year and all over the world, that Christ our Lord may bless them and raise them according to his measure. Make glad the face of the earth, sustain us, mankind, and give safety to the cattle, and save us all from the inflation, plagues, earthquakes, drowning, fire, calamities, deportation by the bird, the souls of the strangers, and the rising of heretics, and to grant peace and tranquility for our Holy Orthodox Church and all the churches, and raise the affairs of his Orthodox Christians in the whole world, through the sign of the Holy Cross, now and forever, and forgive us our sins.
Lord, have mercy.
Pray and ask for the Holy Pascha of our Lord Jesus Christ, our Savior, so that he may complete it for us in peace and show us the joy of his resurrection for many days to come, while all of us are safe, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison.
Gentek met oro.
Kyrie eleison.
Kyrie eleison. Kyrie eleison.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Kyrie eleison. Kyrie eleison. Kyrie eleison.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
O King of peace,
Grant us your peace, confirm to us your peace, and forgive us our sins.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Disperse the enemies of the church and fortify her to be unshakable forever.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Emmanuel, our God, is among us now. His Father's glory and the Holy Spirit.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison.
May he bless us all and purify our hearts and heal the sicknesses of our souls and bodies.
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison, Kyrie eleison. save us.
Amin, alleluia, doxa betrike, ioke, agio pneumatike, ninke ai, Kestos eonas toni onon, amin, ten oshe volen goem mosche open choice,
Jesus be.
Christos pietav ashve pestavaros ek echom chem ep satanas, apasiten nene chala, sotiem mono onainan, amin, alleluia, glory to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, now and forever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen. We proclaim and say, O our Lord Jesus Christ, who was crucified on the cross, crushed Satan under our feet. Save us and have mercy upon us. Kyrie eleison,
Kyrie eleison, Kyrie vlogison, aminismo, erois, simatonia, condi evol glombiesmo. Jesus Christ, our true God, who accepted the passion willingly and was crucified on the cross on our behalf, may He bless us with all spiritual blessings. Help us and complete for us this Holy Pascha. Show us the happiness of His holy resurrection for many years to come. Through the never-ending intercession of the Theotokos, the Mother of God, Saint Mary, and all the archangels and the angels, and all the righteous, and through the prayers of the patriarchs, the prophets, the apostles, the martyrs, the just and the righteous, and the cross-bearers, the ascetics, and the confessors, and all the anachorites, and through the blessings of His holy Pascha of our good Savior, Lord Jesus Christ, may their holy blessings, their grace, their power, their gift, their love, and their help be with us all forever. Amen. Hear us, dear Lord, when we pray thankfully. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. O King of peace, grant us your peace, forgive us our sins, produce the glory and honor forever. Amen. Hear us, dear Lord, when we pray thankful, our Father, who art in heaven.
Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come,
Thy
thy
will
will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not to temptation, but deliver us from evil. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, for thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Now the love of the Holy Father, the grace of His only begotten Son, and the gift unto Holy Spirit be with us all. Amen. Go in the peace of the Lord, be with us all.
And with your spirit.
And good to see you all. God bless you. We are very blessed. I mean, we have churches open, but all over the world the churches are closed. So we are really very blessed.